We've all heard the incredible stories of Jesus turning water into wine and walking on water. For many of us, these are foundational stories of faith. But what if they were more than just displays of divine power? What if each of the roughly 37 recorded miracles of Jesus has a profound, hidden lesson waiting for you today? It's like finding a secret message inside a story you thought you knew. We're about to break down every single one of them to uncover the crucial message behind his supernatural acts. By the end of this, you'll see the miracles of Jesus in a whole new light. Not just as historical events, but as windows into the very heart of God. The Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John detail around 37 distinct miracles that Jesus performed during his 3-year ministry. And that's just the ones they wrote down. The Apostle John even joked that the world itself couldn't contain the books if everything Jesus did were recorded. Self couldn't contain the books if everything Jesus did were recorded. So, the miracles we have were chosen for a reason. They aren't random puzzle pieces. They were selected to create a specific picture, showing us something vital about who Jesus is and what his mission means for all of us. To really get to the heart of these hidden lessons, we're not just going to go in chronological order. Instead, we'll explore them by the incredible truths they reveal. We'll look at miracles that show Jesus' authority over nature, his power to provide his deliverance from evil, his radical compassion and healing, and finally, his ultimate power over death itself. Let's start with the moments Jesus showed that the very laws of physics answered to him. Some of the most spectacular miracles are when Jesus simply tells the natural world what to do. These weren't for show. They were to prove that the one who created the world was now walking in it. Think of it like the architect of a building showing up and effortlessly redesigning a wall just by speaking. First up, the calming of the storm. As told in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Jesus is asleep in a boat with his disciples when a monster storm hits, and they are, understandably, freaking out. They wake him crying, "Lord, save us." Jesus just stands up, tells the wind and waves to be still, and everything goes completely calm. The hidden lesson here is about authority and trust. In the terrifying storms of our own lives, financial, emotional, or relational, it can feel like God is asleep. But this story shows he's not just in the boat with us. He has the authority to command the storm itself. The real question is, do we trust that his voice can bring peace to our chaos? Next, Jesus walks on water. Found in Matthew, Mark, and John, the disciples are again in a boat, fighting a storm. Then they see Jesus just strolling across the sea toward them, and they're terrified. This miracle is a masterclass in faith over fear. Peter, feeling bold, asks to walk out to Jesus on the water. He takes a few steps, but the second he looks at the wind and the waves, he gets scared and starts sinking. Jesus immediately saves him, asking, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" The lesson is crystal clear. When our focus is on Jesus, we can do the impossible. It's like walking a tightrope. The first rule is don't look down. The moment we focus on the storm around us, we sink. Finally, in this category, we have one of the most puzzling miracles, the withering of the fig tree. As told in Matthew and Mark, Jesus is hungry, sees a fig tree with plenty of leaves but no fruit, and he curses it. The tree withers and dies. This seems harsh, right? But it was a living parable. The leafy yet fruitless tree was a symbol of religious hypocrisy. It's like a beautifully wrapped gift box that turns out to be empty inside, all outward show, but no real spiritual fruit. The lesson is a sharp warning against having a faith that's just for appearances. It challenges us to make sure our faith is genuine and producing something real. Beyond controlling nature, Jesus also showed his power to provide, usually when people were in desperate need. These miracles teach us about God's insane generosity and our need to trust him to provide. The very first miracle Jesus ever performed was turning water into wine at a wedding in Cana. When the wine runs out, a moment of huge social embarrassment for the hosts. Mary tells Jesus he has the servants fill 6 giant stone jars with water, and then turns it into the best wine of the night. This wasn't just about saving a party. This first sign reveals that Jesus' ministry isn't about rigid rules, but about bringing joy, abundance, and transformation. He takes the ordinary water that makes it extraordinary. The lesson? God's presence is like a master artist who takes the simple black and white sketch of our lives and floods it with color. Then there's the first miraculous catch of fish in Luke 5. Peter and his buddies had been fishing all night and caught absolutely nothing. They were exhausted and defeated. Jesus tells Peter to go out into the deep water and try again. Peter is skeptical but says, "Because you say so, I will." The result is a catch so huge you say so, I will. The result is a catch so huge it almost sinks 2 boats. The lesson here is about obedience. Jesus takes our professional failure, our empty nets, and when we obey his word, he turns it into supernatural success. And he gives Peter a new purpose. From now on, you will fish for people. From now on, you will fish for people. When we obey Jesus, when we obey Jesus, even when it seems crazy, he not only provides for us, but gives us a bigger mission. This theme gets turned up to 11 with the feeding of the 5,000. This one is so important. It's the only miracle, besides the resurrection, that all 4 Gospels make sure to tell us about. A massive crowd has followed Jesus to a remote place with no food. The disciples see only what they lack, just 5 loaves of bread and 2 small fish. It's like trying to pay off a mortgage with the change in your pocket. But Jesus takes that tiny meal, gives thanks, and multiplies it to feed everyone with 12 baskets of leftovers. The hidden lesson is that Jesus is the bread of life. He can take our pathetic resources and multiply them beyond our wildest dreams. It teaches us to offer what we have to God, no matter how small, and trust him with the rest. It teaches us to offer what we have to God, no matter how small, and trust him with the rest. Just to make sure they got the message. He does it again. The feeding of the 4,000, recorded in Matthew and Mark, involves 7 loaves and a few fish. By performing a similar miracle twice, Jesus reinforces the lesson that his compassion and provision are limitless and for everyone. This crowd was likely in a non-Jewish area. His grace isn't a one-time thing. It's a constant, overflowing source for anyone who needs it. Finally, after his resurrection, Jesus performs a second miraculous catch of fish. The disciples are back to their old job, fishing, and again have caught nothing. A man on the shore, the resurrected Jesus, tells them to cast their net on the right side of the boat. They do, and haul in 153 large fish. This miracle is a powerful bookend to their journey. It's a lesson in restoration. Despite denying and doubting him, Jesus meets them right where they are in their failure, and once again provides and confirms their life's mission. It's like a beloved coach putting a player who fumbled back in the game and calling the winning play for him. The Gospels also pull back the curtain on a cosmic battle, showing Jesus confronting the forces of darkness head-on. These miracles of exorcism are stunning displays of his absolute authority over evil. In a synagogue in Capernaum, Jesus is teaching when a man possessed by a demon cries out, "I know who you are, the Holy One of God." Jesus simply says, "Be quiet. Come out of him." The spirit throws the man into a convulsion and leaves. The people are floored. The hidden lesson here is one of authority. Jesus doesn't need complicated rituals. His word is like a universal law that even evil has to obey. This very first exorcism establishes that a new power has arrived, one that evil simply cannot defeat. Perhaps the most dramatic showdown is when Jesus casts demons into a herd of pigs. In the region of the Gerasenes, Jesus meets a man tormented by a legion of demons, living among tombs and so violent no one could restrain him. The demons recognize Jesus and beg to be sent into a nearby herd of pigs. Jesus allows it, and the pigs rush down a steep bank and into a lake where they drown. The lesson here is huge. It shows Jesus' power to restore the most broken and outcast person. It's like finding a priceless painting that's been defaced and meticulously restoring it to its original glory. It also teaches that Jesus values one human soul more than 2,000 pigs. He brings order to chaos and freedom to the captive. In another instance, Jesus heals a mute, demon-possessed man. When the demon is driven out, the man who couldn't speak begins to talk. The crowd is amazed. The religious leaders make a sinister accusation. He's only casting out demons by the power of Satan. The lesson here contrasts the nature of Jesus' power with the blindness of his critics. His miracles are about restoration, giving a voice to the voiceless. Their accusation is a warning that our own biases can blind us to the work of God happening right in front of us. Like someone complaining about the sun being too bright. Then, we see the power of a faith that refuses to give up in the story of the Syrophoenician woman's daughter. This non-Jewish woman begs Jesus to heal her daughter. At first, Jesus tests her, seeming to dismiss her. But she persists with a humble, witty faith, arguing that even dogs get the crumbs from the master's table. Blown away by her faith, Jesus heals her daughter from a distance. The lesson is that faith isn't limited by your background or ethnicity. God's grace is for anyone who comes to him with persistent, humble trust. Next is the healing of a boy with an unclean spirit. A father brings his son, who has been tormented by a spirit his whole life, to the disciples, but they can't heal him. The father says to Jesus, "If you can do anything, help us." Jesus zeroes in on that phrase. If you can, everything is possible for one who believes. The father's honest cry is one of the most powerful lines in the Bible. I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief. Jesus then casts out the demon. The lesson is about the link between faith and power. Even a little faith, a faith that admits it's struggling, is enough for Jesus. It's like trying to start a fire. Even a tiny, flickering spark is all he needs to build a roaring flame. Finally, Jesus heals a blind and mute demoniac, combining physical healing with spiritual deliverance. By restoring the man's sight and speech, Jesus shows his power to make people completely whole. This miracle causes the crowd to ask, could this be the Son of David, a title for the Messiah? The lesson is that Jesus came to undo all the works of darkness, whether they show up as physical sickness, spiritual oppression, or both. He brings light and wholeness. If you're finding these lessons valuable and seeing these miracles in a new way, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe. We're covering all of them, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's dive into the most common type of miracle Jesus performed. Physical healing. More than anything else, Jesus healed people. These weren't just about fixing bodies. They were powerful statements about compassion, inclusion, and the forgiveness of sins. A perfect example is when Jesus cleanses a man with leprosy. A leper approaches Jesus, a man who was legally unclean and a total outcast. He kneels and says, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Moved with compassion, Jesus does the unthinkable. He reaches out and touches the man, saying, "I am willing. Be clean." Instantly, the leprosy is gone. The hidden lesson is about breaking barriers. Jesus' touch didn't make him unclean. It made the man clean. His holiness is not fragile. It's contagious. Like a powerful light source, it isn't diminished by darkness. It obliterates it. It teaches that God's love crosses every social and religious barrier to restore our dignity and bring us home. Similarly, we see the healing of the woman with the issue of blood. This woman had been bleeding for 12 years, making her unclean and isolated from her community. In a huge crowd, she thinks, if I can just touch his cloak, I'll be healed. She does, and she is. Jesus stops everything and asks who touched him. Trembling, she comes forward. Instead of shaming her, he calls her daughter and says, "Your faith has healed you. Go in peace." The lesson is about active faith. She reached out in desperation, and that was enough. Her faith was like plugging a lamp into a power outlet. The simple act, plugging a lamp into a power outlet. The simple act of making contact released the power that changed everything. Next, faith crosses cultural lines in the healing of the centurion's servant. A Roman centurion, an officer in the army occupying Israel, comes to Jesus because his servant is paralyzed. He tells Jesus he's not worthy for him to even come into his house, but says, "Just say the word, and my servant will be healed."
But Jesus is stunned, saying he hasn't seen faith like that in all of Israel. He heals the servant from a distance. The lesson is that real faith understands authority. The centurion, a military man, knew that a commander's order is carried out whether he's physically present or not. He recognized that Jesus had the same kind of authority over the physical world. One of the most powerful healing stories is the healing of the paralytic let down through the roof. A group of friends are so desperate to get their paralyzed buddy to Jesus that they climb onto the roof, dig a hole, and lower him down right in front of him. Seeing their wild faith, the first thing Jesus says to the man is, "Son, your sins are forgiven." The religious leaders are furious. To prove he has the authority to forgive sins, Jesus then turns to the man and says, "Get up." Here it is. Que prove as a
The best found she looked at me. Things bedroom this. Me put ones who seems to say sushi like Miss Bispon's reality she's like up to the big game. The line you go get good like I thought they have, but the all my good set like the you get is body. That's a later no get up promise me just you. This family is that hell as it's the one that spin when we do his shot the set is gonna he came to that no you know what that is well God I was how there was
The lesson is that no issue is this thing. Send me that real encounter with giants is built in me and me.
Launches their eyes and says, according to their eyes and says, their eyes and says, his power is always there, like electricity in the walls, but our belief is the switch that allows the current to flow. Later, Jesus heals a blind man at Bethsaida, but this time, the healing happens in stages. Jesus leads the man out of town, spits on his eyes, and lays his hands on him. The man says he sees people, but they look like trees walking. So Jesus lays his hands on him a second time, and then his sight is crystal clear. This unique two-step miracle teaches a vital lesson. Sometimes healing is a process. It's like developing a photograph in a dark room. The image doesn't appear all at once. It slowly comes into focus. It's a reminder to be patient with how God is working in our lives. A more famous story is the restoration of sight to Bartimaeus. A blind beggar named Bartimaeus shouts for Jesus on the road from Jericho. The crowd tells him to shut up, but he just shouts louder. Jesus stops and calls for him.
Bartimaeus throws his cloak aside, jumps up, and runs to Jesus. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asks. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asks. "Rabbi, I want to see." "Go." Jesus said, "Your faith has healed you." Immediately, he could see. The lesson is about a persistent, shameless faith that won't be silenced. Bartimaeus throwing his cloak, probably his only possession, was like a ship captain burning his boat on a new shore. It was a symbol that he was ready to leave his old life behind for good. Jesus also heals a deaf and mute man. People bring a man who is deaf and can barely speak. Jesus takes him aside privately, puts his fingers in the man's ears, spits and touches his tongue. He looks up to heaven, lets out a deep sigh, and says tongue. He looks up to heaven, lets out a deep sigh, and says this, Ephatha, which means be opened. Instantly, the man could hear and speak perfectly. The lesson is in that personal, physical touch. Jesus didn't have a magic formula. He met this man's specific needs in a tangible way. That deep sigh also reveals the compassionate heart of God, groaning along with creation for its healing, like a master musician painfully tuning a broken instrument. In a moment of incredible tension, Jesus heals the servant's severed ear. During his arrest in Gethsemane, Peter draws his sword and sloughs the ear of the high priest's servant. Jesus rebukes Peter, then touches the servant's ear and heals him. This is his final healing miracle before the crucifixion. The lesson is staggering. Jesus shows compassion to his enemies in the very act of them arresting him. It's a powerful, real-time demonstration of his command to love your enemies, like a firefighter rescuing the very arsonist who started the blaze. Finally, there are the general accounts of Jesus healing many at Gennesaret. As soon as he arrived in the region, people recognized him and ran to bring all their sick. They begged him to just let the sick touch the edge of his cloak, and everyone who did was healed. The lesson here is about the sheer power and grace radiating from Jesus. His healing was so abundant, it was like the sun. You don't have to do anything complicated to get warm. You just have to step into its light. A special category of healings happened on the Sabbath, the Jewish day of rest. These were deliberately provocative, designed to teach a crucial lesson about what God truly values.
In the synagogue on the Sabbath, Jesus heals a man with a withered hand. The Pharisees are watching him, hoping to catch him breaking the rules. Jesus calls the man forward and asks a piercing question. Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill? They stay silent. Jesus, angry at their hard hearts, tells the man to stretch out his hand, and it was completely healed. The lesson is a direct hit on dead legalism. For the Pharisees, the Sabbath was a museum full of fragile rules. For Jesus, it was a hospital where healing was the priority. People are always more important than rules. Similarly, Jesus heals a woman crippled for 18 years. Also in a synagogue on a Sabbath, he sees a woman who was bent over and couldn't stand up straight. He calls her forward, says, "Woman, you are set free from your infirmity," and puts his hands on her. She immediately straightens up, praising God. The synagogue leader is furious, but Jesus calls him a hypocrite. The lesson is that Jesus came to set people free, and that work can't be put on a schedule. You wouldn't tell a drowning person to wait until business hours to be rescued. The Sabbath is for restoration and freedom. The Sabbath is for restoration and freedom, not for restrictive rules. Later, Jesus heals a man with dropsy. While at the house of a prominent Pharisee on the Sabbath, Jesus again asks the religious lawyers if it's lawful to heal on this day. When they won't answer, he heals the man anyway. He then points out that any of them would rescue their child or their ox if it fell into a well on the Sabbath. The lesson, once again, is that human need always comes before religious ritual. Compassion is required at all times. Finally, the story of the cleansing of 10 lepers has a double lesson. 10 lepers call out to Jesus for healing. He tells them to go show themselves to the priests. And as they go, they are cleansed. But only one, a Samaritan, a foreigner, comes back to thank Jesus. Jesus asks, weren't all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? The first lesson is that they were healed through faith and obedience as they went. But the second, and maybe more important lesson, is about gratitude. The difference is like 10 people receiving a life-changing gift. 9 enjoy the gift, but only the one who returns to say thank you forms a relationship with the giver. He was told, "Your faith has made you well," which hints at a deeper spiritual healing. The final and most profound miracles show Jesus' authority over our ultimate enemy, death itself. These acts are the clearest signs of his divinity and the foundation of all Christian hope. The first is when Jesus raises the widow's son at Nain. Jesus and his disciples run into a funeral procession. A widow is burying her only son. Luke's gospel tells us Jesus' heart went out to her, and he said, "Don't cry." He walks up, touches the coffin, and commands, "Young man, young man, young man, I say to you, get up." The dead man sits up and starts talking. The lesson here is about God's compassion intercepting our deepest despair. Jesus doesn't wait to be asked. He sees the runaway train of human grief and pulls the divine emergency brake, proving he is the source of life itself. Next, Jesus raises Jairus' daughter. A synagogue leader named Jairus begs Jesus to heal his dying little girl. On the way, they get the news. She's dead. Jesus turns to the terrified father and says, "Don't be afraid, just believe." At the house, he takes the girl's hand and says, "Talitha kum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." The 12-year-old girl immediately stands up. The lesson is that our faith must continue even when the situation looks completely hopeless. For us, it's too late is a final verdict. For Jesus, the story isn't over until he says it is. His words, "Don't be afraid, just believe," are for us too when all seems lost. The most famous of these miracles is the raising of Lazarus. Lazarus had been dead and in a tomb for 4 days. When Jesus finally arrives, his sister Martha says, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Jesus says to her one of the most powerful things in all of Scripture, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die." He then goes to the tomb and shouts, "Lazarus, come out." And the man who was dead walks out. This is more than a miracle. It's a declaration. Jesus isn't just someone who can rescue you from death. He is the very definition of life. It's like the difference between a lifeguard who can pull you from the water and being the very air you need to breathe. This was a preview of the resurrection for all who believe. Finally, we arrive at the cornerstone of Christianity. The resurrection of Jesus Christ. After being crucified and buried, on the 3rd day the tomb was empty. He appeared to Mary Magdalene, to his disciples, and to hundreds of others. This is the last and greatest miracle, the one that validates all the others. The lesson is ultimate victory. Again, is the keystone in the arch. It is the keystone in the arch. Without it, everything else collapses. Flying out of the rainbow. Without it, serves so much more than just ancient tales of power.
Dream they're done been doing itself. They reveal a heart of radical compassion that breaks rules and crosses social barriers to reach hurting people. They teach us that faith, even tiny, struggling, spark-like faith, is the key to unlocking the power of God. And most importantly, they all point to one central truth: that Jesus is the Son of God, the resurrection and the life, who came not just to perform miracles, but to be the miracle that could save the world. These stories have been changing lives for 2,000 years. So the question now is for you: which miracle and its hidden lesson speaks most powerfully into your life right now? Let us know in the comments below. And if this video helped you see the miracles of Jesus in a deeper way, be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear this message of hope and power. Thanks for watching.